Remember when we used to play Smash 4 on this thing? Wait, remember when we used to play Smash 4? Okay, say whatever you want about Smash for Wii U as a whole, but one thing is for certain, there were stages in the game. But seriously, this game had some really cool stages, with fun mechanics plucked from different games across the history of gaming. Also, Great Cave Offensive was there too. Previously, we talked about every stage that was in both Smash for 3DS and Wii U, as well as all of the 3DS exclusives. So this time, we'll be talking about the Wii U exclusives and everything that was added post-release of both games as paid DLC. So, let's get started. The first new stage found in Smash for Wii U is Big Battlefield. Revealed in the Smash for Wii U 50 Fact Extravaganza Direct, this stage is an offshoot of Standard Battlefield designed for the newly introduced 8-player Smash mode, offering plenty of room for everyone. In Wii U, 8-player Smash was only compatible with certain stages, so it was nice to have a stage specifically designed for it. The design of the stage is literally just Battlefield but bigger, and with extra platforms, so it has the exact same Smash original origin. And naturally in Smash 4, Big Battlefield matches that version of Battlefield, and likewise the same is true for Smash Ultimate. Next is our first new Mario stage for this game, Mushroom Kingdom U, based on New Super Mario Bros. U. This is a transforming stage, with Kamek the Magic Koopa appearing periodically and using his magic to change the stage into multiple different locations from the game. The stage always starts out on a grassland form based on Acorn Plains, the first world of Mario U. The second form is based on the game's sixth world, Rock Candy Mines. Then a layout based on Merengue Clouds, the game's seventh world. And finally, the inside of Slide Lift Tower, the tower level found in Merengue Clouds, which features similarly moving platforms. While only 3 worlds are represented in actual appearance, elements from other worlds can also appear. Geysers can shoot up from the bottom that act as platforms, and occasionally they will have big urchins on them, which serve as a damaging hazard. These come from the third world of the game, Sparkling Waters. Giant icicles can also drop from above, originating from Frosted Glacier, the fourth world. If a player is struck while falling, these icicles will freeze them. Once they land, they serve as additional slippery platforms and can be destroyed by attacks. Beanstalks can also appear on the stage, sprouting leaves that serve as extra platforms. Beanstalks were the main mechanic of Beanstalk Jungle, a level found in New Super Luigi U, the DLC challenge mode for the game. Alongside all of this, Nabbit can appear at random to interfere with the battle. Nabbit is a small purple rabbit introduced in New Super Mario Bros. U. Originally, he served as a thief, stealing items from toad houses. Mario would have to chase him in a previously played level and grab him in order to recover these items. Later on, he would appear in New Super Luigi U, performing the same function but also acting as a playable character. In Smash, Nabbit will appear with his big sack and attempt to catch fighters in it. If successful, he will then run off and fly towards the top of the screen in an attempt to KO that player, though they can attempt to escape by mashing. Nabbit can also be attacked as though he were a fighter, which is honestly kinda what he deserves for attempted kidnap and murder. Staying in the realm of Mario games, we next have the Mario Galaxy stage, obviously based on Super Mario Galaxy. The core of this stage is built off of Gateway Galaxy, the first planet that Mario finds himself on at the beginning of the game. This stage is unique in that, rather than being perfectly even, it implements a gravity mechanic based off of the one in Mario Galaxy. In that game, each planet had its own gravitational pull, keeping Mario on the surface no matter what the orientation of the planet. The curvature of this stage reflects that, with the gravity pulling fighters to the planet's center of gravity. As a result, projectiles can behave strangely. Some will act as you might expect, also following the curve of the planet, like Rob's laser. However, others will not follow gravity and will stay oriented with its fighter rather than the planet, kinda like Fox's lasers, so they just go flying outwards. The house in the background is the same one found on Gateway Galaxy. In the background, we can see a variety of spacecraft that are found in both Mario Galaxy games. There are Bowser's airships, which were used throughout Galaxy 1 in both the opening of the game as well as in certain levels. There's also Starship Mario, the main hub of Galaxy 2, piloted by Lubba. This ship was the means of traveling to different galaxies in lieu of the Comet Observatory. Finally, we can see the Starshroom, the Toad Brigade spacecraft found in both games. The Toad Brigade is a team of toads that explore space and assist Mario, led by Captain Toad. This stage is largely untouched in the jump to Ultimate, however one point of interest is the minimap that is new to this game, reflecting the curvature unique to this stage. Next up, we have yet another stage with a repeat name, Mario Circuit, specifically the version from Mario Kart 8. Like other Mario Kart stages before it, this stage will follow the course of the track on a floating platform, stopping at various spots throughout the race, allowing the racers to potentially hit the fighters. However, this stage has a unique quirk that sets it apart from the other Mario Kart stages: anti-gravity. This was a new mechanic introduced in Mario Kart 8, allowing for courses that saw racers capable of driving on walls or upside down, sticking to the racetrack through anti-gravity tech. To honor this new mechanic, Mario Circuit keeps the fighters oriented the same way, showing off how the drivers of this course use the anti-gravity. There are segments where racers are driving normally, but also on the sides of walls or even completely upside down. This also means that the track can also serve as walls or a ceiling, making it impossible for players to be KO'd in those directions. The main fighting platform also seems to use technology similar to the anti-gravity found on the karts. As you may have guessed, the racers on this stage are once again Shy Guys, referencing the download play feature in prior Mario Kart games, allowing you to play local multiplayer with a friend without actually owning the game, but limiting you to playing as a Shy Guy. However, unlike the previous Mario Kart stages, which were actually based on games that had download play, Mario Kart 8 does not offer such a feature. However, using Shy Guys as the racers seems to have simply become a staple for Mario Kart stages in Smash, so they were likely still chosen for the sake of consistency. Next, we have the only new Donkey Kong stage for both versions of Smash 4, Jungle Hijinxs, which I can't believe that's how you spell it. This stage comes to us from the revival of the Donkey Kong Country series, Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Wii. Jungle Hijinxs is the name of the first level of this game, paying tribute to the first Country games, whose first level was also named Jungle Hijinxs. This stage is pulled directly from a segment of the level in Donkey Kong Country Returns, with some adjustments to make it more friendly as a stage in Smash. This section in the game serves as an introduction to a new mechanic to the series, allowing for gameplay in both the foreground and the background by way of barrel cannons. This is emulated pretty well in Smash. Occasionally, barrel cannons will appear on the stage, allowing a fighter to blast into the background or the foreground if they jump into them. The Smash stage implements a few additional details to make this a more engaging stage to fight on and to prevent camping. After a player launches from a barrel cannon, they will have a weird orange smoke effect around them for a short time. If they jump into another barrel cannon while the smoke is around them, the barrel will instead explode. This is designed to keep players from just running away, jumping into barrel after barrel to avoid any fighting. Occasionally, the main platform in the foreground will lower, revealing a number of cannons, forcing the fight to take place in the background for a short time. Any hits that take place in the background cause more knockback than usual as a way to compensate for the blast zones being further away. Lastly, an enemy called a Screaming Pillar can occasionally appear in between the two sets of platforms. If a fighter launches out of a barrel from the foreground and hits the pillar, it will fall into the background, causing damage to anyone who gets hit by it. The Screaming Pillars are a part of the Tiki Tak tribe, the primary enemies in Donkey Kong Country Returns. Jungle Hijinxs failed to make a return in Ultimate, leaving it as just a Smash for Wii U exclusive. Our next stage is a new Zelda one, Skyloft. This stage is based on Link's home in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, Skyloft, also known as the Isle of the Goddess. The Earth is uninhabited by humans, with floating islands above the clouds being where they live instead. Link lives on Skyloft, and his adventure eventually takes him below the clouds to explore the Earth below. The stage consists of a primary platform that will take on different shapes throughout the course of the match. It will also travel all around Skyloft, periodically landing on different locations found on the floating island. For all intents and purposes, this seems to be the map ripped straight out of Skyward Sword and only given some minor tweaks. Most of the locations the stage takes fighters to are some of the main points of interest in Skyloft. The Knight Academy, on or in front of the statue of the goddess, or in front of the bazaar, just to name a few. In the far background, we can see some of the other floating islands above the clouds. On top of this, a few background characters, for lack of a better word, can also be seen. First are Loftwings, bird creatures that play an important role in the game, serving as the means of travel above the clouds. Link receives a rare Crimson Loftwing, a reference to the red bird found on the Hylian shield, but each Skyloft resident will typically have a partner Loftwing to travel with. You can also see Beetle's air shop in the background. Beetle is a recurring character in the Zelda series, with different incarnations often running shops. This version of Beetle's store flies around Skyloft, with Link needing to ring the bell with a projectile in order to signal Beetle that he has a customer. Lastly, beacons of light can be seen breaking through the thick layer of clouds. These beams don't exist at the start of the game, but as Link gains access to areas of the surface, these beams appear to indicate an opening to each different part of the land. Next, we have one of the most infamous stages in Smash, Pyrosphere. Pyrosphere is a location found in Metroid Other M. Samus is sent here by her commander in order to track down a mystery creature that had previously attacked her. Later on in the same location, she realizes this creature is actually Ridley the space pirate, who she knows to have been killed before. This Ridley is in fact a clone mistakenly engineered from DNA on Samus' suit. Ridley then attacks Samus and a battle takes place in a lava-filled area. This battle is the basis for the stage in Smash, with the location and arena being pretty much exactly the same as in Other M. Much to Ridley fans' displeasure, Ridley appears here as a giant stage boss. He can attack by flying at high speed using his claws and tail and breathing fire. He can even absorb the energy from the tanks beneath the stage, increasing his strength. Fighters can attack him, and after enough damage is dealt, whoever exceeds the damage limit with their final attack gains Ridley as an ally, who will attack all others on the stage. This clone Ridley is a big point of focus in Other M. The game shows us the life cycle of Ridley and presumably his species, with it starting as a form known as Little Birdie before shedding to become the mystery creature form and ultimately a fully mature adult Ridley. Other minor enemies will appear on this stage as well. FG2 Grams are turrets that will fire beams when hit. Julians are strange alien creatures that will inflate and explode when they receive damage. Finally, Zeros will appear, which are harmless on their own. However, they can be picked up, increasing a fighter's weight, and thrown to deal damage. While Zeros have appeared multiple times since Super Metroid, both FG2 Grams and Julians were first introduced in Metroid Other M. Pyrosphere missed out on returning in Smash Ultimate, likely because Ridley was promoted from boss character to, finally, a playable fighter. Next, we have a brand new Yoshi stage known simply as Woolly World. This stage matches the fabric aesthetic of Yoshi's Woolly World for the Wii U. Interestingly, this stage was revealed to be a rather late addition to Smash for Wii U, and its inclusion in Smash actually predates its Game of Origins release. Smash released in winter 2014, while Woolly World wasn't until summer 2015. The stage begins on a form that resembles a basic grassland, with several windmills in the background. This comes from World 1-5 of Woolly World, Nitty Naughty Windmill Hill. There are platforms that hang down on the stage in the form of a mobile, which is taken from World 3-2, Wobble Mobile Jump. Eventually, the platforms rise into the sky, serving as the only ground to walk on. After a bit, the mobile will lower again into a new area, which looks to be made of fabric toy blocks. This itself doesn't really come from anywhere, and it sort of just encapsulates the artistic style that Woolly World has overall. The mobile raises one more time into the sky before bringing the fight back down to the windmill area, starting the transitions from the beginning again. As you can see, this stage really doesn't have a ton going on in the reference department, but honestly, I think that makes sense. The stage was added late in development, whether via Sakurai's decision or at the request from Nintendo. And since the game wasn't even out yet, it's understandable that they really didn't have a ton of source material to reference and just needed to get the stage done as quickly as possible. Woolly World also did not return in the jump from Smash 4 to Ultimate. Our next stage is the biggest stage in all of Smash history, the Great Cave Offensive. This is an incredibly complex stage, with tons of platforms, small alcoves, and hazards all over the place. Additionally, if the fighters are even spread out moderately, they become incredibly small and very difficult to see. The Great Cave Offensive is one of the game modes in both Kirby Superstar and its remake, Superstar Ultra. Kirby falls down a pit and finds himself in a giant cave, and the goal of the game is to find the exit and collect treasure. There are 4 different stages in this mode: Subtree, Crystal, Old Tower, and Garden. Each of these stages are interconnected, with Kirby able to freely travel to and from each one. The stage in Smash takes the 4 stages found in this mode and jams them all together, with each stage represented by a section of the stage: Subtree on top, Crystal on the right, Old Tower in the center, and Garden on the left. Treasure chests can periodically appear during the fight, supplying players who attack them with items or sometimes a sabotaging explosion. Lava and spikes can be found peppered throughout the stage, referencing some of the hazards that can be found in the original game mode. Spikes simply damage and knock back opponents, while lava will instantly KO any opponent above 100%. Cannons can likewise be found on both this stage and the Kirby mode. Minecarts will also occasionally spawn and will launch forward if a player enters them, potentially damaging opponents. Minecarts are the method of getting from area to area in the Great Cave Offensive, so this is a nice reference in the stage. Despite this stage kind of being frustrating to play on, I actually really like the way that Smash took this game mode and cleverly made a stage representing all of the different areas and mechanics. You just need an incredibly strong prescription to be able to see all of this stuff. The only new Star Fox stage in both versions of Smash 4 is Orbital Gate Assault. Rather than being the name of a location, the name of this stage describes the events that take place in it, and by extension, the game of origin. In the 8th mission of Star Fox Assault for the GameCube, the Aperoid race launches an assault on the Beltino orbital gate with many missiles, and Star Fox and Star Wolf both team up to defend the gate and their homeworld of Corneria. The stage in Smash loosely recreates the events of this battle. The fight begins atop the Great Fox out in space, with some R-Wings flying nearby. Eventually, the Great Fox flies away, resulting in the fight now taking place on top of these previously mentioned R-Wings, as well as an Aperoid missile. The missile then crashes into the orbital gate's force field before eventually being destroyed by 3 R-Wing. These R-Wing then become where the fight takes place, flying throughout the gate and the space battle overall. Eventually, they drop the fighters off at the second Aperoid missile, which will again attempt to break through the force field before being destroyed. R-Wing pick the players up again and take them back to the Great Fox, where the stage loop will begin once again. Sakurai revealed in a Miiverse post that this single stage actually took an entire year to complete, which is crazy. Though I guess it does make sense because there's a ton going on with this stage. Unfortunately though, this stage would not see a return in Smash Ultimate, leaving all that work exclusive to the Wii U. Next, we have a brand new Pokemon stage, Kalos Pokemon League. This is naturally from the location where the player takes on the Elite Four in the Kalos region, the setting of Pokemon X and Y, the 6th generation. The main form of the stage is based on the main hall of the Pokemon League, which has 5 sets of doors, one for each of the Elite Four, and a final for the champion. The player is able to confront the Elite Four in any order that they wish, with each having a room themed around their typing. While the main hall in X and Y is rather basic, just with the big stained glass window as the focal point, the stage form in Smash really takes this window and extrapolates it, offering more decorative windows and making the area much bigger. This stage also emulates the concept of the Elite Four in X and Y's Pokemon League. Each Elite Four member has their own special room leading off the main hall, but the style of the room is similar to the main hall. Instead of having you travel to each room, the stage instead transforms into a form that matches the typing and rooms from X and Y. Additionally, both hazards and background Pokemon will appear that correspond to the room's typing. The first transformation turns the stage into the Blazing Chamber, representing the Fire-type Elite Four member, Malva. Her room has giant pillars of fire that blast out when you enter. Smash has taken this and placed platforms on top, letting you stand at the top of these pillars, but you can still take damage from the actual fire underneath. The background Pokemon that appear are all fire types to match with Malva's team. Infernape, Tepig, and Blaziken all appear, representing multiple generations of fire-type starters. Pyroar also appears, the only 6th generation Pokemon here, and also the only one of these Pokemon to appear on Malva's team. Though interestingly, Smash uses a male Pyroar, while Malva's Pyroar is female. Each chamber also has a 20% chance to spawn a legendary Pokemon, which will match the typing of the chosen chamber and have an additional effect on the stage. For the Blazing Chamber, Ho-Oh has a chance to appear. Ho-Oh will cause the pillars of fire on the stage to burn with more intensity, resulting in the platforms going up much higher and the fire much more of a hazard. The next transformation is the Flood Chamber, representing the Water-type Elite Four member, Seabold. In X and Y, there are 2 gears held up by chains, and the room floods with water when the player enters. This is sort of used in Smash, but it has its own spin on it. These gears are now turned into more solid platforms for fighters. Rather than having the whole area flooded with water, ramps will appear on the left and right side, and periodically, water will rush down across the entire stage with the chance of fighters being pulled in the current. The background Pokemon are Piplup and Blastoise, 2 Water-type starters, Wailord, who is honestly there probably because it's just funny to see that big of a Pokemon, and Clawitzer. Clawitzer debuted in Generation 6 of Pokemon and is also on Seabold's team. The legendary Pokemon for the Flood Chamber is Manaphy. Manaphy will turn the stage into a giant drain, using Whirlpool to cause water to spin down towards the center, pulling players in and potentially KOing them. The third transformation is the Ironworks Chamber, for Steel-type Elite Four member Wickstrom. As you enter this chamber, 2 giant swords fall from the ceiling and slowly enter into slots in the floor. In Smash, these same swords appear, though they function differently. They'll start out entering into the slots, but they will stay about halfway inserted with the hilts serving as platforms. The blades are constantly active hitboxes, so touching them results in damage and knockback. If hit with attacks, however, these swords will slowly lower into the slots, bringing the platforms down to ground level. A liquid metal puddle also appears in the center periodically, which will turn any fighter who touches it into a metal fighter, which obviously makes sense for the Steel-type form. The background Pokemon are Steelix and Scizor, 2 of the first new Steel-type evolutions of pre-existing Pokemon, Clink-Clang, and Honedge. Honedge is a new Generation 6 Pokemon and is the first stage of what eventually evolves into Aegislash. Aegislash, as well as the previously mentioned Scizor, are both members of Wickstrom's team. The legendary Pokemon for the Ironworks Chamber is Registeel. Registeel will use Stomp on the stage, which will cause the swords to leave the slots and spin around, potentially hitting players, before resheathing. The final transformation for the stage is the Dragon Mark Chamber, representing the Dragon-type Elite Four member Drasna. A giant statue moves upon entering her chamber, and Smash takes this statue and adds even more to it. Periodically, the statue will roar, which will cause purple flames to appear on the stage, damaging anyone who touches it. The background Pokemon are Dragonite, Garchomp, Hydreigon, and Axew. The former three represent pseudo-legendary Dragon-type Pokemon from their respective generations. Pseudo-legendaries are Pokemon which are stronger and somewhat rarer than most other Pokemon, but still more common than legendaries. And Axew's probably just there because it's cute. Ironically, none of these Dragon-type Pokemon are actually used on Drasna's team. And the final legendary Pokemon that can appear is Rayquaza. Rather than chilling in the center like the other legendaries, Rayquaza will fly across the screen, indicated by a wave of electricity, serving as a dangerous hazard. This legendary is also unique in that it's actually repurposed content, as Rayquaza was a boss from the Subspace Emissary mode in Brawl, and this attack is pretty much exactly the same as one of its attacks during that battle. Alright, so after that incredibly long-winded stage, we have a short one now. Coliseum, or Arena in Japanese, from the Fire Emblem series. Unsurprisingly, this stage takes place in a Coliseum or arena, with a huge crowd of onlookers cheering on the fight down below. Throughout the fight, the main ground that's fought on will rise into a variety of different platform configurations. This mechanical ground platform concept is pretty much Smash original, designed to provide a quote-unquote in-universe explanation for these platforms changing up. However, the Fire Emblem series is no stranger to Coliseums and arenas, having existed since the very first Fire Emblem game and in a majority of the games across the entire series. Players can wager some gold to enter the arena in hopes of winning and receiving both experience and more gold than they bet. However, utilizing arenas runs the risk of your unit dying, resulting in both the loss of the wagered gold and the loss of that unit for the rest of the game. Design-wise, the stage's inspiration was likely sparked from the appearance of arenas in Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, though Smash took a rather generic design and made it more intricate. Our next stage is Flat Zone X, a new stage that is both new and completely recycled. Flat Zone X takes the previous Game & Watch stages of Flat Zone and Flat Zone 2 and completely smushes them together into one single stage. Since Flat Zone 1 was just a single stage layout, really this is just adding the one Flat Zone 1 transformation into Flat Zone 2. So now among all of the Game & Watch games represented in Flat Zone 2, Helmet is added to that lineup. Either way, this stage is quite literally exactly the same outside of that. The layouts, hazards, references all stay exactly the same. Despite this though, I think it's incredibly unique to take two stages of similar concepts and combine them into one ultimate stage. It would kind of be like taking Stadium 1 and Stadium 2 and combining all of those different transformations onto a single Pokemon Stadium X. I just think it's neat. Our next stage is another one of the absolute big boys in the game, Palutena's Temple. Palutena's Temple has been a regular point of interest in the Kid Icarus series. However, like most things in Smash, the appearance of this stage takes its cues from Kid Icarus Uprising, the soft reboot of the series. During the events of chapters 19 and 20 of Kid Icarus Uprising, Palutena gets possessed by the Chaos Kin, and as a result, Skyworld gets destroyed. This destruction is the inspiration for the presentation of this stage, since it doesn't really look like a very majestic or put together temple by any definition. The stage is so big that it's effectively split into multiple smaller sections. An area made up of lots of platforms, a watery area with a fountain, what appears to be dungeons that are presumably supposed to be beneath the temple, and a cliffside that's been ripped out of a mountain with water spilling down the middle. A bridge also connects the two halves of the stage, and it can be attacked and broken. Overall, this stage is largely Smash original. Like I said, it does take design beats from the Kid Icarus series, but none of this really mirrors anything from Uprising too well. We can, though, see the giant statue of Palutena in the background, indicating that this is indeed her temple, similar to the statue in the background of the stage literally named Skyworld. Next up, we have the most gamer stage of all. Gamer comes from a minigame of the same name in Game & Wario, a spin-off of the WarioWare series for the Wii U. In this game, 9V and 18V are competing in a new game, with 9V getting the highest score. 5V then takes the game and tells them to do their homework, and when they finish, they discover that she now has the new high score. Determined to beat her score, 9V secretly stays up past his bedtime and plays in his room. 5V will continually check on 9V, so the player needs to hide and pause the game so that they don't get caught. She can open the door, walk by the window, or even pop out of the TV to catch him playing. The stage itself takes place on 9V's desk in the bedroom from the minigame, however the layout is randomized each time you load the stage. Books and wooden blocks will make up a majority of the platforms in each layout. Pyoro and its clay platform, the building from Mona's game Shutter, or a sketchbook can all occasionally appear in different forms. The hiding from mom element is the basis for the stage's main mechanic. 5V can appear in any of the ways that she does in Game & Wario. Additionally, she has a couple of Smash original ways as well. She can appear out of the sketchbook or the gamepad, which will only appear in certain layouts of the stage. When 5V appears, a beam of light will shoot from her eyes, indicating her field of vision. Any players caught in this light will face her motherly wrath and receive damage, a brief stun, and high knockback. Lastly, as a fun Easter egg, a Virtual Boy can be seen next to the TV. The Virtual Boy is a failed Nintendo console, the first in their attempt at 3D gaming. This Virtual Boy is also visible in 9V's bedroom in Game & Wario. Our next stage is a brand new one from the Pikmin series, Garden of Hope. This location is one found in Pikmin 3 for the Wii U, being one of the earliest areas visited, where Alf must rescue Brittany. However, the stage in Smash is actually based on an area of the Garden of Hope that is only accessible on the second visit in the game, only possible after defeating the Scornet Maestro and rescuing Louie. Much of the level is pretty faithful to its appearance in Pikmin 3, though Smash does do some rearranging for the benefit of the fight. A breakable bowl and bridge are both found on this stage, and after a while, some Pikmin will appear to rebuild them, based on their ability to do so in Pikmin 3. A peckish Aristocrab, an enemy that can be found in the Garden of Hope, can also enter the foreground of the stage as a big boy hazard, damaging players who are hit and destroying some of the terrain. A Bulborb enemy can also hang out in the background. Interestingly, while the Bulborb won't interfere with the fighters directly, stage Pikmin will not appear until the Bulborb goes away, which is a neat nod to Bulborbs being a natural predator of Pikmin. This means that while the Bulborb is present on the stage, any of the elements broken by player attacks will not be repaired until it leaves. Next, we have a new Animal Crossing stage, Town and City. This stage is based on the mechanics of Animal Crossing City Folk, where there exists both a town and a city. The town is where the player and other villagers live, with some smaller shops and establishments found throughout. However, the player can visit the city by riding the bus, where they can go to other bigger shops found in the central plaza. The main platform of the Town and City stage will travel back and forth between a town background and a city background, representing the traveling back and forth in City Folk. The platform layouts are different for each area, but both sides will always have a bus stop sign, representing the usage of the bus to get to and from the town and city. In the town, we can see the player and villager houses as they appear in City Folk, as well as different notable points of interest. The Able Sisters shop, fountain, museum, Nook's Cranny, Town Gate, and Town Hall are all visible. Moving to the city, we can see the Auction House, Gracie Grace, Happy Room Academy, Marquee, and Shampoodle shops all in the plaza. Just like with Smashville, many background characters can appear on this stage. However, unlike on Smashville, all of these characters are special characters in the game, meaning they aren't villagers, but rather unique NPCs that serve a specific function in Animal Crossing. These are the characters that can randomly appear on the town half, these are the characters that can randomly appear on the city half, and these are the characters who can appear on either. All of these make for a grand total of 40 background characters that can appear. Other elements from Smashville are carried over to Town and City. A balloon can appear, carrying a piece of food if items are on. The stage also syncs up with the system clock, changing the lighting depending on the time of day, exactly the same way Smashville functions. Certain shops will also be open or closed depending on the time of day. Additionally, KK Slider will also appear on Saturday nights between 8 PM and 12 AM, just as he does in Smashville, playing tracks that are ripped straight from Animal Crossing. Next up, we have a stage repping a brand new series, Wii Fit Studio. This stage is a pretty liberal interpretation of the studio as it appears in the Wii Fit series. Ordinarily, this is a rather small room that features a trainer instructing the movements and a mirror in the background. This idea has been scaled up to be the size of the entire stage, with the room and mirror being like 10 times larger. Exercise equipment that could be seen in Wii Fit sits in the background of the stage, and the balance board also makes an appearance. While this was actually being used in Wii Fit, in Smash the board has instead been animated to be a little guy instead of just being a static piece of equipment. All of the platforms on this stage are also balance boards, extended further than normal to offer more room to battle. Occasionally the mirror will disappear and a yoga pose will be shown, sort of being the replacement for the instructor. In the Jump to Ultimate, silhouetted people can be seen using the exercise equipment or doing stretches, based on similar silhouettes found throughout the Wii Fit series. Overall, the Smash team just took the idea of a workout room led by an instructor and kinda just did whatever they felt like. Next up, we have a super throwback stage, Wrecking Crew, based on the NES and Famicom game of the exact same name. This stage is a modernized take on the NES game, implementing mechanics from it into Smash's gameplay. In Wrecking Crew, Mario and Luigi were tasked with using a hammer to destroy walls in each level, avoiding enemies as they go. There are also bombs, which can be attacked in order to explode many walls at once. Barrels can fall on the enemies in the game, trapping them inside. A lot of this is carried over pretty faithfully into Smash. The stage has a ground floor and 4 additional floors above it. While standard attacks cannot break the stone walls, bombs are all over the place, which will explode when attacked, which will cause the walls to break. In Wrecking Crew, support beams can be destroyed in order to cause the barrels to drop on top of enemies. This mechanic has been taken further in Smash. When enough walls are destroyed on a floor, the floor above it loses its support, and it will cause every road to collapse down one level. This is how barrels can be used to trap fighters, who can either mash to get out or simply get hit by an opponent's attack. Entire floors collapsing doesn't exist in Wrecking Crew, just the ability to drop barrels, so this cascading damage is unique to Smash. There are an infinite number of randomly generated floors on this stage, so you could play for literally an hour and you would never run out. Moving to another fairly unique stage, let's talk about Pilotwings. Pilotwings is a small series of flight simulation games developed and released by Nintendo, with 3 entries total: Pilotwings for the SNES, Pilotwings 64, and Pilotwings Resort for the 3DS. The stage in Smash combines elements from both the SNES and 3DS games. The beginning of the stage sees players fighting on top of a red biplane flying through point rings, based on the plane found in the first Pilotwings. While fighting on this plane, the scenery below is that of a flat 2D island. The flat island moving around in a 3D space is pulled straight from the SNES game, which utilized the Mode 7 technology for that console, which simulated 3D movement by manipulating 2-dimensional textures. After a while, the fighters will be dropped off the red plane onto a yellow plane, coming from the planes used in Pilotwings Resort. The design of the point rings is also updated to mirror the ones from Pilotwings 64 and Resort. Pilotwings Resort took place in an area known as Wuhu Island and allowed players to fly around this island area in the gameplay. At the time, Wuhu Island was a recurring location found in Nintendo games. The island debuted in Wii Fit under the name Wii Fit Island before its more notable appearance and name change in Wii Sports Resort. It also appeared in Mario Kart 7 as a playable raceway. When the fighters are on this yellow plane, the background changes to the 3-dimensional Wuhu Island, referencing the new setting for the game on 3DS. Throughout this part of the stage, Miis can be seen with rocket belts in the background, referencing gameplay from Pilotwings Resort, though the actual rocket belt first appeared in the original Pilotwings. And finally, the yellow plane will trade off with a red plane, starting the cycle of the stage over, taking you back to the original Pilotwings for SNES. And speaking of Wuhu Island, this area is also its own separate stage in Smash for Wii U. Similar to other stages, platforms will take you to different locations on the island, each with some unique elements. The first location is the Frisbee Dog Park, where a Mii can be seen throwing a frisbee for his dog to catch, based on one of the sports available in Wii Sports Resort. Next is the Swaying Bridge, which is a side perspective on one of the stages found in Swordplay Showdown, also in Wii Sports Resort. Then we have the Speedboat. The design of this boat seems to be Smash original, though boating is fairly common in Resort, such as in the wakeboarding sport. Next we have a large group of rocks at sea, largely an original idea just taken from the ocean found around Wuhu Island. And then we have Maka Wuhu, which is the name of the volcano that's found on Wuhu Island. This is the highest point in the entire island and can be virtually seen from anywhere, often seen in the background of many of the sports being played. We then have a boating gate, which indicates the starting point for the power cruising sport. As a result, Miis can be seen power cruising through this gate during the midst of the fight. Then we have the Wishing Fountain, which is a location in the southern end of Wuhu Island, found at the center of the town there. Next is the Swordplay Coliseum, which is naturally a location where the swordplay duel sport can take place. And lastly, we have Talon Rock, another location found around Wuhu Island. Throughout the battle, Miis can be seen performing sports, doing leisure activities, or just spectating. This is one of the rare instances where Miis seen on stages are not taken from the console's saved Miis. Instead, they're simply generated based on a set of pre-made Miis, and the stage will always use these, though their appearances may be random. Finally, as a neat detail, the yellow plane from Pilotwings can be seen in the background of this stage, linking the last 2 stages together, as well as Wuhu Island's presence in both original games. Our next stage is a brand new Sonic stage known as Windy Hill Zone. Windy Hill Zone is the first zone of Sonic Lost World, a formerly Nintendo exclusive Sonic game that was released between the releases of Brawl and Smash 4. Design-wise, Windy Hill is reminiscent of Green Hill Zone in its patterns and overall design, however it also has new elements to separate the two as well. The gameplay of Lost World finds Sonic running on giant cylindrical levels, able to rotate across the entire thing, kinda like a Sonic version of the concept in Super Mario Galaxy. To that end, the stage in Smash is similar to the Mario Galaxy stage as well, being a curved stage that has a gravity mechanic rather than a completely parallel one. Many of the elements are pulled from the actual Windy Hill Zone, including springs and the windmill. The springs can be a bit of a gamble with the gravity mechanic, as they won't fire you straight up relative to the screen, but will send you at a sort of odd angle. This is still helpful for recovery, but can be devastating if you aren't careful. The windmill has platforms attached to it, following the rotation of the blades. On the stage, there are also animal friends that make an appearance. These have been a recurring element since the very first Sonic game, where Eggman captured them and essentially enslaved them to power his robot minions. They make a return in Sonic Lost World, with their designs in that game being represented here in Smash. Our next stage is the other Pac-Man series stage in the Smash series, Pac-Land. Pac-Land is an arcade game released in 1984. Pac-Man's goal in this game is to traverse side-scrolling levels and return a lost fairy back to Fairyland before ultimately returning home to his family. Inky, Pinky, Blinky, Clyde, and Sue are all enemies that can be encountered in the game, attempting to impede Pac-Man's journey. Power pellets are also featured, turning the ghosts blue like in the arcade game and allowing Pac-Man to eat them for points. Pac-Man travels through all kinds of terrain during each stage, such as cities, jungles, and deserts. The stages found in Pac-Land are pulled straight from the game and placed into Smash to serve as the stage. In the arcade game, the scrolling of the stage follows Pac-Man, while in Smash, Pac-Land automatically scrolls throughout each level. While the enemy ghosts are removed for Smash, most of the other hazards are retained. Fire hydrants pushing players, collapsing parts of a bridge, and water spouts are some of the hazards that are yanked straight from the arcade game. The stage starts out at Pac-Man's house, then scrolls through a city, a forest, and a bridge above water. Once it reaches the end, the players all end up in Fairyland, simulating the end of the arcade level. Mother Fairy appears here and will grant a player winged shoes, one of the rewards offered in Pac-Land. In both games, the winged shoes boost the player's jumping ability. After this segment, the stage scrolls right to left. The return trip takes place in a desert, then a canyon, and a lake, before returning to town and then Pac-Man's house. When returning to the house, Miss Pac-Man can be seen, greeting her husband after his long journey. In the Japanese version of Pac-Land, Miss Pac-Man has the exact same appearance as in Smash, which is now her concrete design. However, in international versions of Pac-Land, she looked quite different, instead being based on artwork done for previous Pac-Man arcade cabinets. In both versions, she's joined by baby Pac-Man, who is noticeably missing in Smash. The stage then loops in the exact same way, however the lighting will instead have the stage take place at sunset. After another complete loop, the stage will then take place at nighttime. The arcade game also features different lighting, however the actual layouts for the stages would see small changes as well, while in Smash it stays the same. Our next stage is one of the first new ones added in an update to Smash for Wii U, Miiverse. Miiverse is a social service offered by Nintendo back on the Wii U and 3DS. It was essentially a web forum that allowed users to post about different topics, such as games or characters, in subsections known as communities. The Miiverse stage was a unique one that integrated posts from the Miiverse app into the background of the stage. Every Smash character had support communities, where players could submit drawn posts that would potentially show up in the background of the stage whenever those characters were being played. On paper, this was a really fun idea. Cool drawings and supported posts cheering on all of the different fighters in Smash. On paper. But in execution... yeah, this stage ultimately just became a bastion of memes combined with racial slurs and wiener drawings, just like pretty much everywhere on the internet. Admittedly, some of the memes and joke posts were really funny, but the stage just didn't end up being the wholesome concept that Nintendo clearly hoped it would be. You would have needed a full-time dedicated team to constantly vet the posts that would be allowed on the Smash stage, and that just isn't reasonable. In November 2017, the Miiverse network was officially shut down. As a result, Miiverse compatibility across all the different Wii U and 3DS games was no longer supported, and if you go back and play on this stage with your Wii U connected to the internet today, the stage will not load any posts in the background. Naturally, because Miiverse was no longer supported, Miiverse does not make a return in Smash Ultimate. Good night, sweet prince. And now we move on to paid DLC stages, with the first one that was ever released, Mario Maker, available on both the 3DS and Wii U. This stage is based on the game of the same name, which allowed players to create their very own Mario levels. Enemies, blocks, power-ups, coins, everything could be placed pretty much anywhere the player decided, creating some unique stages that would never have appeared in any official Super Mario game. 4 different styles can be selected and changed to at any time, based on Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, or New Super Mario Bros. U. Smash takes this concept and makes Super Mario Maker a completely randomized stage, with many possible outcomes for every single time you load into the stage. Along with the actual layout, the starting style for the stage will also be randomly selected from those available in Mario Maker, and throughout the match it will transition into another of the styles in the same way that it does in the level editor. On Smash for 3DS, it will only alternate between 2 of the styles, likely for performance reasons, but on Wii U and later Ultimate, it will transition through all 4 styles. Plenty of the more unique elements that could be used in Mario Maker levels can be generated on this stage, like ice blocks or lava appearing in unusual places, falling donut blocks, warp pipes, or conveyor belts. It's also possible for blocks and structures to be destroyed during gameplay, and periodically throughout the match, a hand holding a Wii U stylus will repair the stage back to its initial glory. This hand is the same one that would appear on screen when using the level editor in Super Mario Maker. Various Mario enemies can also appear in the background, such as Bullet Bills, Hammer Bros, or a Goomba in Bowser Jr.'s Clown Car. It really is hard to fully encapsulate everything about this stage. It's just a random chaotic mess at times, and honestly, I love it. That chaos really does do a good job of representing what Super Mario Maker ended up being. The next DLC stage was bundled along with Ryu, called Suzaku Castle. In Street Fighter II: The World Warrior, this is Ryu's home stage, located in Japan. It takes place on a rooftop found at a Japanese temple. Being a more traditional fighting game, Suzaku Castle in the Street Fighter series is completely flat with no platforms or hazards. Overall, the stage layout is pretty original to Smash. The right side features a long flat section similar to the actual Street Fighter stage, but a platform above it and platforms to the left are unique, just to keep this from being a simple flat stage. There are also signposts found on this stage that can be broken when an attack is performed next to them, another detail that was based on the stage's appearance in The World Warrior. This stage has seen updates and changes in appearance in the Street Fighter series, though the 3DS and Wii U versions of the stage match its original sunset appearance. In Ultimate, the lighting has been adjusted, made to match more closely with the stage's appearance in Street Fighter V. When nearing the end of a match, either with 30 seconds remaining, a player at low stamina, or a player on their last stock, most tracks will play their critical versions, sped up versions of the song meant to hype up the final moments of the battle, a mechanic that exists in the Street Fighter series. The next DLC stage is Midgar, bundled alongside Cloud. Midgar is the first area in Final Fantasy VII, the capital city created by the Shinra Electric Power Company, split into 9 different sectors. The opening of Final Fantasy VII features a big pan over the city before ultimately lowering onto the opening scene, so it's very possible that, with how iconic this opening is, that's why this location was chosen as a stage. The stage takes place on a battlefield-ish layout, matching the very steampunk style that Midgar has, with the city itself in the background. The biggest building that can be prominently seen is the Shinra Building, the main headquarters for the Shinra Company, which plays a fairly significant role in Final Fantasy VII's story. After a moment, a small red orb will appear on the stage. This is a summon materia, an item that allows the player to call on monsters for assistance during battle. A fighter can run into the materia and summon an ally monster who will affect the stage in some pretty considerable way. Ifrit uses Hellfire, which blasts one section of the stage with fire with enough force to move the entire stage. The player who summoned the monster will be immune to the fire. Rama uses Judgment Bolt, which electrifies the platforms, damaging and paralyzing all but the summoner, and rearranges the platforms during this time. Odin uses Zantetsuken, which slices the stage in half and really separates them, leaving a huge gap in the center for a while before pushing back together. Any player caught in the gap when it repairs itself will be crushed to death. Leviathan uses Tidal Wave, which floods the entire area up to about half of the actual platform. This water has a strong current, which pushes players to the left, either into the stage for damage, or a KO over 100%, or to the leftmost blast zone. Finally, Bahamut Zero uses Terra Flare, which destroys the city and summons an enormous pillar of light in the center of the stage, damaging all players except for the summoner. All of the summons found on this stage are, not surprisingly, available in Final Fantasy VII. The final stage in Smash 4's lifetime is none other than Umbra Clock Tower, bundled along with Bayonetta. The Umbra Clock Tower is seen in both Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2. In the opening of Bayonetta, both Bayonetta and Jean fight angels on top of this falling clock tower, using the Witch Walk ability to stay attached. In the sequel, Bayonetta is sent back in time and meets her mother, who defends the clock tower against evil forces with her fellow witches. The clock tower ultimately gets destroyed, careening off the edge of a cliff, and Bayonetta and her mother fight angels at the same time as her past self and Jean. The stage itself in Smash is fairly basic. The face of the clock tower serves as the primary platform, with smaller chunks of the tower falling and serving as smaller, soft platforms. These get rearranged into a variety of Smash original arrangements. A fun Easter egg for the stage is that the clock face will match the system time of whatever console you're playing on, though it has no impact on the rest of the stage. Periodically, the stage will fall through a big purple portal that represents Umbra witch magic. This signifies the stage falling into Purgatorio, a parallel to the human world. While inside this dimension, Affinity and Inspired can appear in the background, as can the gigantic Fortitudo. None of these have any impact on gameplay on this stage. After a bit, the stage will enter another purple portal, returning to the human world. And that is going to do it for all of Smash for Wii U. We're definitely in the home stretch now, because Ultimate only has a handful of new stages compared to the rest of the games in the series, and most of them were bundled with DLC fighters. But all of that is going to have to wait until next time. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Have a good day, and please remember to be good to one another.